Hey, welcome back, Paulies Sleepers fans. We're gonna do a four-part series on first impressions here now that the draft is over. So we're gonna break it down and do two divisions on each one of these videos to make them shorter. You guys seem to like the shorter videos, and I don't blame you. So let's get right to it. We're gonna start off with the AFC East and the Buffalo Bills, hashtag Bills Mafia. I mentioned that Josh Allen was my favorite quarterback going into the draft, and he didn't land in a very good spot there. He's got Kelvin Benjamin, and he's got Zay Jones, and I think they are both underperformers. I think that, A.J. McCarron is going to be the starter, but he won't last very long, so Josh Allen will get plenty of opportunity. But I just don't see him being among, the top class now based on where he landed. I think that LaShawn McCoy will get drafted too high. I think he's going to take a hit with Tyrod Taylor leaving town. We talk about this a lot, but running backs benefit from a running quarterback. So that scheme is going to change there, and maybe not for the better. I think the Bills are on the decline. So the only person I'm looking to draft there is LaShawn McCoy, if he falls enough to where I feel comfortable with him, and we'll get into rankings later on in the summer. Dolphins, kind of the same thing. There's really not much to like here. They're sticking with Ryan Tannehill, which is a mistake in my opinion. They drafted Kalen Ballage, who's a pretty good running back. So that's a crowded backfield now with Frank Gore and Kenyon Drake. They also drafted Mike Gesicki at tight end, who was one of the top tight ends. And I think this guy is going to prove to be a very good player for fantasy down the road. I don't see him making an immediate impact, and it's tough for rookie tight ends to make an immediate impact. Evan Ingram was kind of an anomaly last year, and he plays more like a wide receiver, and there were a ton of injuries that allowed him more production. So usually the rookie tight ends don't, get in and start producing right off the bat. But in a dynasty league, I would definitely look to get Gesicki because, with Landry out of town, they've got fewer options. So, Tannehill might look to dump it off to him early and often. But for this year, really the only person I'm looking at is Kenyon Drake. If he falls, I think he'll get drafted too early too, and that's a crowded backfield now. That's a running back by committee. The Jets, Sam Darnold, they got their quarterback. I would definitely look to get him in dynasty leagues because that's a team that's going to have to keep throwing. I don't like their running game with Isaiah Crowell and whoever else they have in town. I'm not drafting any of these guys, including Sam Darnold, because I don't do any dynasty leagues. But I like Robbie Anderson. So, Sam Darnold's got a cannon. And Robbie Anderson likes to go deep and make big plays. He has shown that he could be the number one guy. They're going to get Quincy Enunwa back, but whoever's piloting the ship there, Luke McCown or Teddy Bridgewater or Sam Darnold, they all have cannons, and Robbie Anderson can get the ball deep. So I like him this year quite a bit. The Pats are going to be fantasy relevant once again. They made a brilliant move in the draft with two very rare first picks. They took Isaiah Wynn, Georgia Bulldog run blocker, and then they took Sony Michel a few picks later. So that was obviously orchestrated. Those are both Georgia Bulldogs. So Sony Michel's going to have somebody to run behind that he's confident with. And Isaiah Wynn can play all along the line, but like I said, he definitely, his run blocking is his strength. And Sony Michel is going to be, move right into that Dion Lewis role. They still have Rex Burkhead, who they paid, and I think he's one of the top paid running backs in the league right now. But, he's not a big guy. He can't carry the load. I think they'll both get a lot of work. I usually don't like going after players that I know are going to share time, but the Pats offense is so efficient, and Sony Michael is going to catch balls. I look for him to catch at least 50 to maybe even 60 balls this year or more. And I look for him to get probably around 200 touches, which is going to be putting him in the 12 to 1,400 all-purpose yard range, 50-plus catches, 7-8 touchdowns, maybe even closer to 10. He's going to produce right out of the bat. So definitely Dynasty League pickup, but in redraft leagues, we are definitely going to be targeting Sony Michael. And I think he's going to go pretty early. We're going to have to see. But right now I would target him, maybe around the 6th round. Obviously, Brady and Gronk are always good picks. I never pick Gronk because he misses so much time. But, and he never falls, enough for me because he's going to be a 2nd-round pick again. But Brady is going to be a top 5 quarterback again. I mean, it's not a sexy pick, but, he's so consistent. And he won me a trophy last year, so I see no problem with drafting Tom Brady again, especially with the addition of Sony Michael. He likes to dump it off to his backs, and he's got 2 backs in Michael and Burkhead that he can trust. So we're going to move on to the AFC South. The Texans really didn't do much in the draft. They didn't draft a running back, so it's still Lamar Miller and Deontay Foreman. I mentioned last year that Deontay Foreman is going to eventually take the reins, and I think it'll happen this year, and it'll happen early because Lamar Miller's getting old, and he's got a lot of wear on those tires. So we like Deontay Foreman there. I'm a little worried that the Texans are changing their offense. I see if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but hopefully Deshaun Watson and company can adjust. DeAndre Hopkins has no ceiling. I mean, he could really have a Jerry Rice type year this year, and even improve on last year's numbers. He showed that no matter who was quarterbacking, that he gets a high percentage of the target share. And then Deshaun Watson really, really likes Will Fuller. In PPR leagues, he's not going to have a ton of value because he's only going to catch 2 or 3 or 4 balls a game. But I'm still going to look to get Will Fuller. I think he's got a great chemistry with Deshaun Watson. So, those are the big 3 there, Fuller and Nuke and Watson. And Deontay Foreman would be the running back I would want to have there. The Colts did some exciting moves. They had the most picks of any team since the 1994 draft when they changed to 7 rounds. And they definitely look to pick up guys along both sides of the line early to shore up their line. You win the game in the trenches. They always say that. So Quentin Nelson is a beast, and they got another offensive lineman from Auburn. They got some good edge rushers and linebackers. But then they made some really exciting offensive choices towards the end of the draft. Nyheim Hines from NC State is going to be a beast. I mean, he's got to compete with Marlon Mack, so I don't know how the target share is going to shake out, but he's a kick returner, punt returner. He can catch the ball. He can run all over the place. He was the fastest running back in the draft at 4.38, even faster than Barkley's 4.40. And he started out in college as a slot wide receiver and then moved to running back. And coach has already said that they're going to move him around. They'll move him into the slot. They'll play multiple running back sets and move guys and split them out wide. You could do that with Marlon Mack too. So I think they're going to be a whole different offense this year. And Nyheim Hines is somebody that I think could definitely be, somebody that kind of comes out of nowhere to be a big fantasy guy this year, especially if Marlon Mack doesn't, I think Marlon Mack's still an 8 to 10 touch guy. So I think there's going to be a lot of touches to go around there. They also got a guy from Mississippi, Jordan Wilkins, who's a little bigger, which is good. We need a bigger back at 6 feet, 220 pounds. He had a very high elusive rating, and the coach loves this guy, so he's going to be in the mix as well. They cut Matt Jones today, no surprise there. They still have Christine Michael and Robert Turbin, but I think one of those guys will get cut too. But I think both of these guys that they drafted are going to be on the team. For fantasy, this is a running back by committee. So do you want Wilkins? Do you want Marlon Mack? Do you want Hines? I say out of those three, I like Nyheim Hines the best. They also drafted Deion Kane from Auburn. Great wide receiver that fell to the 6th round. No major analyst had him going past the 4th round, so they stole him. And they call him Kodak. He can win at the point of attack. He can win the 50-50 ball. He can create separation. He's fast. He's a big guy, 6'2", 220. And I look for him to make an immediate impact and be opposite T.Y. Hilton on day one, week one. So I definitely think that he can move up. I think he's pro ready. They also drafted a wide receiver, Fountain. I don't know much about him, but definitely like Nyheim Hines and Deion Kane here. Of course, T.Y. Hilton and Andrew Luck are going to be fantasy relevant again. Watch out for T.Y. Hilton. You know, when Andrew Luck was healthy 2 years ago, he led the league in yardage. So they also have Jack Doyle. I don't think Eric Ebron's going to take a whole lot of looks from him, so Jack Doyle will still be a nice tight end to take if you don't get who you want early. He's somebody you can grab late. The Jags, you know, the rich just keep getting richer. They drafted Ronnie Harrison to go along with A.J. Bouye and Jalen Ramsey. He might not start day one, but I think he's going to be an excellent guy to add to their secondary. And they also drafted one of my favorites, DJ Chark from LSU. But that's just a crowded wide receiver core. You've got Keelan Cole, you've got D.D. Westbrook, Marquise Lee is still there. They re-signed him. They got Dante Moncrief from the Colts. So who knows what's going to happen there at wide receiver. I say D.D. Westbrook is still my favorite, but I do like me some DJ Chark. But with all those wide receivers, you're going to want to wait and see kind of what happens and see if there's any injuries. Obviously, Leonard Fournette is a big pick here. The Tennessee Titans only had 4 picks in the draft. They picked up a backup quarterback, Luke Falk. Obviously, Delaney Walker is a great unsexy pick there at tight end. Dion Lewis is in town to get that ground attack going and keep that ground attack going. They like to run the ball. I like Dion Lewis better than Derrick Henry, but that might be a straight-up 50-50 split. So I don't know, where these guys are going to fall in drafts. I would definitely lean towards Dion Lewis a little bit more for his explosiveness. But Derrick Henry, I think, led the league in yards after contact last year. So he's a beast as well. Wide receivers, Corey Davis, he needs to kind of emerge and show his potential. I think Rashard Matthews is still a great pick. He seems to always go overlooked, and he's had 2 amazing fantasy football years back to back. No one ever drafts this guy, or he gets drafted really late. So I think he's a great late pickup. I've got a few more minutes, so I think I'm going to go ahead and go over the AFC West. The Ravens picked up Lamar Jackson, and I think that's going to be a great pickup in dynasty leagues. If Joe Flacco gets hurt, pick up this guy and play him. I think he's going to be a great fantasy player. They have the offensive coordinator that was the offensive coordinator for Michael Vick during his strong years, running quarterback. So this team's going to look a lot different once Joe Flacco leaves. I think he's got no dead cap money next year, so they'll probably be gone next year. But like I said, if he gets hurt, Lamar Jackson all the way. They picked up Michael Crabtree, who I love. I love Michael Crabtree. I think he's going to be a great pickup. They also got Willie Snead, who's not very consistent. They drafted tight end Mark Andrews from Oklahoma. That might be a nice dynasty pick. And then the running back to have here is Alex Collins. I think he really rose to the top last year and proved that he should be their number 1 running back. So I definitely like Alex Collins here, and Michael Crabtree, and then Lamar Jackson is somebody we're going to want to watch and maybe pick him up off the waiver wire if he gets time to play. But in dynasty leagues, I would definitely take that guy. The Bengals, there's not a whole lot to talk about here. They drafted Mark Walton out of Miami, running back, kind of like Gio Bernard, but it's definitely going to be the Joe Mixon show, and I love Joe Mixon. AJ Green is due for a bounce back year, even though he didn't really have that bad of a year last year. I think he's going to have, a career year this year. I really do. Tyler Eifert's a great guy to pick up late. He always gets hurt, but at that point in the draft, you're picking amongst the dregs anyway, so why not get somebody that could be top 5 at his position? If he stays healthy, he's definitely a top 5 player. Remember, this guy has 18 touchdowns in 23 career games, and he was almost Offensive Player of the Year a few years ago, but he got hurt at the very end of the year. So again, definitely injury concerns here, but Eifert and Jordan Reed from Washington, those are both guys that, you're kind of rolling the dice with. But if you're picking a tight end in the 8th round anyway, you're picking amongst guys that you might be dropping anyway. So why not take a look at one of these guys? So I like Joe Mixon, AJ Green, and Tyler Eifert there. The Steelers drafted Mason Rudolph to be the heir apparent to Ben Roethlisberger. This is good news for Antonio Brown. Means he can finish his career with the Steelers and have a good quarterback. I like Mason Rudolph out of Oklahoma State. Ben says don't look for him to play for 3 to 5 years. Come on, Ben. You said you were going to retire, and now you're saying you're going to play another year, and now you're saying that you're going to play another 3 to 5 years? I mean, come on. I look for Mason Rudolph to be their starter probably next year. Other than that, it's the top guys that we know and love: Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell. Martavius Bryant got traded to the Raiders, so that's good news for Juju. And definitely like Juju this year, although I've seen him going like in the 4th round. I don't know about that because Ben really likes Antonio Brown. So as much as I love Juju, I don't know if I'm going to be picking him up that early. We're going to have to see how this shakes out. The Browns are definitely making a push for it. They drafted Baker Mayfield #1 overall and kind of shocked a lot of people. He's going to sit behind Tyrod Taylor for now. Their bye week is until week 11. So, they've only won 1 game in the last 2 years. So if Tyrod starts out 3-3, they're not pulling him. And I'm going to go on record here, hot take. If Tyrod Taylor plays all 16 games, he'll be a top 10 fantasy quarterback this year. He's been in the 12 to 14 range his first 3 years with no weapons. And now he has Jarvis Landry, Corey Coleman, Josh Gordon, David Njoku, Carlos Hyde, Duke Johnson, and they drafted Nick Chubb from Georgia. So there's a lot of mouths there to feed. So the guy I would really be looking at in drafts this year is to take Tyrod Taylor late, and you could get him really late. I've seen him fall like right now in mock drafts in the 20 to 24 range, which to me again is ridiculous. He's never been outside of number 15, and now he's got a team with a lot of weapons that's going to let him do his thing. So I think Tyrod Taylor is somebody you could definitely wait on. If you don't get the quarterback you like, you could pick him up late. And then if it comes to him, you can always get somebody else later, like a Patrick Mahomes or even Baker Mayfield or somebody like that. But Tyrod, I think, is going to have a career year if he keeps it going and does what he's supposed to do. All those other guys, I'm not going to look to draft them because there's just way too many mouths to feed. I mean, Nick Chubb would obviously be a good pick in a dynasty situation, but he's going to have to fight off Carlos Hyde for carries, and Duke Johnson's going to get, the majority of the pass catching work. Gordon's competing with Coleman and Landry. I don't know. They throw to their wide receivers a lot in this offense that they're inheriting from the Steelers. The Steelers' offensive coordinator is now with the Browns, so it's going to be a different offense. They don't target their tight ends that much, so that's not good for Njoku. But they do like their pass-catching running backs, which that's going to be Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson, and they do target their wide receivers. But again, there's just way too many mouths to feed. So until further notice, Tyrod Taylor is my sleeper right now for fantasy football, big time. So that's it for today. We ended up getting through 3 divisions, so maybe we'll turn this 4-part series into a 3-part series. But you know the deal. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Comment to me if you have any, anything that I missed or anything you'd like to add. And we've got a lot of time, but we're getting started early so we could win some championships next year. See ya.